Hej och välkomna tillbaka. Hi and welcome back. Our first lesson went by really quickly and I didn't even notice. And here we are about to take our lesson number 2. So things are moving quite fast, aren't they? Right? Contrary to our first meeting, where we mainly drew our attention to the verb placement and to the word order in statements, today we are going to look into question formation, how we construct questions, what is so special about questions, and of course, we will try not to forget the principal rule in Swedish syntax. That's it, the fact that the verb always occupies the second position. So, without further ado, let's begin. So, learn to ask questions or lär dig att fråga. Here on your left, you see yet another short dialogue between two young people, but this time we no longer have Daniel and Patricia. This time it is Gabby and Giovanni that are engaging in a conversation. I suggest we apply the very same strategy and analyze this dialogue line by line. So let's find out what these people have to say. Hej! Gabby heter jag. Vad heter du? Hej, Gabby heter jag. Vad heter du? Hi, my name is Gabby. What is your name? Vad heter du is our first question, and it translates into English, what is your name? This question consists of the question word vad or vad. There are two possible pronunciations of this question words. The first one is where you accentuate the consonant D, and the second one is where you omit it. I have to say that the second way of pronouncing the question word vad is used more frequently because what Swedes do, they like to speak very fast, and what happens then that they ignore some sounds. So in this case, it's the letter D. Now, let's come back to this phrase, Gabby heter jag. I hope that you remember that this is a fancier structure to say that my name is, right? Because here we are using fronting. We are positioning the object in the initial position of the question. Do you remember what is a simpler way of saying my name is? That's right. The one where we begin the question with where we begin the statement with the question. Jag heter Gabby. Och Gabby heter jag. The answer to the question is as follows. Giovanni. Varifrån kommer du? Giovanni. Varifrån kommer du? Or where do you come from? Another question, this time starting with the question word varifrån or where from. We can do an interesting thing with this question word. We might as well split it and have two little separate words. That is another question word var or var and the little word ifrån. In order to ask the question, where do you come from? You might as well use the following structure. Var kommer du ifrån? So what we are doing here is we are placing the little word ifrån at the end of the question, right? But the meaning is exactly the same. Varifrån kommer du? Var kommer du ifrån? Jag är från Tyskland. Och du? Jag är från Tyskland. Och du? Do you remember that in our first lesson we have this word tyska? Tyska. Can you tell me the translation for this word? That's right, it's German, or the German language. So if tyska is German, Tyskland is the name of the country, which is obviously Germany. So I am from Germany, and you, right? Or du is an illustration of how we can ask a question omitting some words. When we are having a natural conversation, what usually happens is that we do not use full constructions, and we do the very same thing in English. Instead of saying, I come from England, and where do you come from? We usually say, and you, right? So the same thing is applied in Swedish. och du, and you. Jag kommer från Italien, från Trieste. Jag kommer från Italien, från Trieste. I come from Italy, from the city Trieste. Notice how we can use two verbs in order to say that I come from and then mention the name of the place, right? So the direct translation of the word kommer is come. Jag kommer från, I come from, and you might as well use the simple verb är. Jag är från, I am from. There is no difference. Trieste, var ligger det? Trieste, var ligger det? Or where is it? Where is it located? Here we have this question word var or var, which translates into English as where. Where is it located? This verb ligger is an interesting example in Swedish. So let's take a closer look at it. The dictionary meaning of the word ligger means is to have a horizontal position. Till exempel, jag ligger i soffan. I am laying on the sofa, right? But I would like you to remember that whenever we are going to be referring to a place, to location, we are going to use the verb ligger, not the verb är, right? We can't use är with places. It is just the rule, right? So to say vad är det is a mistake. Never use it. We're only going to be using ligger. Although I have to say that there is another option. There is this verb finns, F-I-N-N-S. It has double N in it, which simply means to exist, right? So we might as well say var finns det, just in general, where is it? So for extra clarity, I just put this verb located into brackets. Var ligger det? Where is it? I norra Italien. In norra Italien. In northern Italy, right? I would like to draw attention to this preposition e. Remember last time I mentioned you that the dialogue was under the headline på kurs in language courses, right? And we had the preposition på. I mentioned that there are several prepositions that we use in order to refer to location or to place. Now the main rule is that with countries, regions, and cities, we are always going to be using the preposition e, right? We always use preposition e. In norra Italien, we have the name of the country, therefore we use the preposition e. Jaha, jag pratar pyttelite italienska. Jaha, jag pratar pyttelite italienska. Right, I speak a little bit of Italian. Pyttelite means a tiny bit. Last time we encountered lite, which means a little. Pytte even strengthens the word. It means that it's even less of that, right? So that means a tiny bit of Italian. Aha, vad kul. How cool, how great, how interesting. And if we come back to this jaha, remember it simply means, okay, I understand, I get it, interesting. Now, I think that it is of primary importance for you to get accustomed to the way that native Swedes speak. So, for this very reason, let's listen to the dialogue.
Hej, Gabby heter jag. Vad heter du?
Giovanni. Varifrån kommer du?
Jag är från Tyskland. Och du?
Jag kommer från Italien. Från Trieste.
Trieste? Var ligger det?
I norra Italien.
Jaha. Jag pratar pyttelite italienska.
Vad kul.
So what about these questions? In Swedish, we have two types of questions. The first type is when a question consists of a question word, for example, where, when, or what. Do you remember? Vad heter du? Var ligger det? And another type of questions is where questions start with the verb itself. For example, kommer du från Italien? Kommer du från Italien? In English, for this type of questions, we have auxiliary verbs. Do or does. Do you come from Italy? But it's not always the case in Swedish. So if we take a closer look at questions with question words, right? This is the table that illustrates the word order. So we have 4 different columns. The first one is for question words, right? For example, varifrån, var och var. Notice how these 2 question words are absolutely identical in terms of pronunciation. So the only reason how you can, the only way that you can differentiate between them is the context. Now the second position obviously is always taken by the verb, right? It is the subject that takes the third position, right? For example, do. In all 3 examples, we have the same subject. And then we position something that is left, annat, right? So the examples are as follows. Varifrån, question word. Kommer, the verb. Du, subject. Where do you come from? Where do you come from? Var bor du? Where do you live? The verb bor means to live. And vad talar du för språk? Vad talar du för språk? What languages do you speak? Ett språk is a language, and then this verb talar is exactly the same as pratar. Talar and pratar are synonyms and they are used interchangeably. They both mean to speak. Okay, let's see what's waiting for us next. Next, we have a little exercise, or should I say 2 little exercises. Exercises A and B. The first one, exercise A, is quite easy because what you have to do is simply to place the question word, the one that matches the question, right? In case you forgot the question words, here in this little yellow rectangular form, you might find something that may help you. Now, exercise B is slightly more complicated because what you have to do is read the answer and think of the question that matches the answer. So this time you have to think of the whole questions on your own, right? So exercises A and B, you have 40 seconds for the task and your time begins now. And this time is up, so it's time for us to check what we have learned, or kolla vad du har lärt dig, right? The answer key, and the answer key in Swedish is facit, right? So let's take it easy and begin with the exercise A, when you only had to insert the correct question word. Blank heter ni, right? The correct answer is vad heter ni. Blank kommer de. Most probably we want to say where do they come from, and then we insert the question word varifrån kommer de. Next we have blank talar hon för språk. That's right, the question word is vad talar hon för språk. And then the last one, ligger Umeå. Remember, the word ligger always refers to position, to place. That means we have to use the question word where, or var ligger Umeå. Here we have a couple of new pronouns also, right? For example, ni, which means you. We are referring to a group of people, not one person, right? What are your names? To be more specific, to be more precise. Then, varifrån kommer de? Where do they come from? Right? They is a pronoun for they, right? We are referring to a group of people, again, either females or males. Now, the spelling consists only of two letters, D and E, but the pronunciation is dom. Dom. Although I have to say that when people are messaging each other, they usually just write dom, D-O-M, right? But in standard Swedish, we should stick to formal language rules and write D and E letters only. And then another pronoun, hon, which means she. What languages does she speak? Now, exercise B. Han heter Johan. So the question is, vad heter han? He, right? Hon pratar danska, norska och pyttelite finska. She speaks a little bit of Danish, Norwegian, and a tiny bit of French, right? Danska, Danish, norska, Norwegian, and finska, that is Finnish, finska. So the question is, vad pratar och talar hon för språk? What languages does she speak? Next answer is, jag kommer från Riga. Jag kommer från Riga. I come from Riga. So the question is, where do you come from? Varifrån kommer du? Varifrån kommer du? And Riga ligger i Lettland. Again, ligger is already an indication that we are talking about a place. Therefore, we say var ligger Riga. Var ligger Riga. I hope that you did not forget the main rule. The verb always occupies the second position because this is exactly what happens. Vad heter, vad pratar och talar, varifrån kommer, var ligger. So great job with this exercise. I believe we might move on to another type of questions, right? Questions without question words, or frågor utan frågeord. This time we have a table of 5 columns, but the first one, right, for question words is empty, right? Because obviously we are talking the questions that start with the verb itself, right? So theoretically, only theoretically, the verb takes the first position, but it's only because the first one is empty, right? Okay, so we have verb, subject, negation, if there is any, and something that is left. For example, arbetar du i Sverige? Arbetar du i Sverige? Do you work in Sweden? Or are you working in Sweden? Right? Arbetar means to work. Next example. Läser han bok? Läser han bok? Is he reading a book? Right? En bok is a book. The verb läser means is reading. And last example. Lyssnar hon inte på radio? Lyssnar hon inte på radio? Isn't she listening to the radio? Isn't she listening to the radio? Right? So all of these examples begin with the verb arbetar, läser, lyssnar. Then we insert the pronoun you, he, or she. Then it is only the third example where we have negation, inte. What is special about negation? First of all, is that we have a separate word for negation, right? And the second thing is that it always comes after the subject in questions without question words, right? Lyssnar hon inte? And then på radio, something that is left. The location, i Sverige with the preposition i, because we are talking about a country, and with countries we always use the preposition i. Then the object book, is he reading a book, right? And to the radio, listening to the radio. I would also like to draw your attention that with the verb lyssnar, we're always going to use preposition på, because, well, we have the exact same thing in English, listen to something, right? So på is the equivalent of English to, listen to something. So questions without question words start with the verb itself. Again, a short exercise for you. Kolla vad du har lärt dig. Check what you have learned. Let's take a look at the example. So first of all, we have hon heter Mona. It's a statement. Hon heter Mona. What we have to do with the statement is to make it a question. A question that starts with the verb itself, because obviously we do not have any question words, right? If this is a little bit confusing, here again is the little yellow rectangular form with formula for the word order that might be of advantage for you, right? So you have 5 different sentences, 5 different statements, and your task is to make questions out of them. You have 30 seconds for the task, and your time starts now. And unfortunately, your time is up again, and it's time for us to take a look at the receipt. Let's do it then. So we have de kommer från England, starting with the verb. Kommer de från England, right? Kommer de från England? Or do they come from England? Do they come from England? Ni pratar tyska och franska. You speak German and French. Franska is French. And the question is as follows. Pratar ni tyska och franska? Pratar ni tyska och franska? Example number 3. Malmö ligger i södra Sverige. Malmö is in southern Sweden, or is located. Ligger Malmö i södra Sverige? Ligger Malmö i södra Sverige? Vi lyssnar på radio. We are listening to the radio. Pronoun we means we. First person plural. Lyssnar vi på radio? Lyssnar vi på radio? And the last one. Han läser en bok. He is reading a book. Läser hon en bok? Is she reading a book? Oh, and by the way, for clarity's sake, this pronoun hon should be replaced with han. Läser han en bok? I think that you did great on this exercise. So again, to check whether we really understand what we're doing, let's revise 2 types of questions again. And we have 2 exercises here, exercise A and exercise B. What we have to do here is like this. Right, in exercise A, you have to identify what type of question is hidden in these statements. Is it a question starting with the question word, or is it a question starting with the verb itself? So my recommendation is that you mark the question word, if there is any, or the verb. While in exercise B, now we have to figure out what type of question it is and insert either the question word or the verb itself in the empty spaces, right? So you have for this task 40 seconds, and yes, here we go, 40 seconds, and your time starts now. Yes, your time is up. I hope very much that this was enough time for you to do these exercises. But now let's take a look at the answer key or the facet again. Right, so in exercise A, var bor Elin och Tobias? Where do Ellen and Tobias live? Right, we have a question with the question word, var or var, and then the verb is bor. When it comes to the second one, bor de i Frankrike? This is the second type of question, right? Because we no longer have any question words. Bor de i Frankrike? Do they live in France? Frankrike. Nummer 3. Arbetar ni i Norge? Do you work in Norway? Do you work in Norway? Right? No question words again, just the verb arbetar. Number 4. Vad talar hon för språk? What languages does she speak? We have the question word vad and then the verb talar. Number 5. Ligger Roma i Italien? Is Roma located in Italy? No question word, just the verb. Ligger Roma i Italien? Now exercise B. Talar de för språk? Vad talar de för språk? The question word is missing. Ligger i Malmö? Var ligger Malmö? Right? Where is Malmö located? Number 3. Bor du? Var bor du? Where do you live? Number 4. Blank kommer han? Varifrån kommer han? Where does he come from? Again, what we can see that all questions from number 1 up to question 4 consist of the question words, right? Var, and varifrån. Or vad, var, and varifrån. And then the last one, de i Sverige. So the words, the verbs that you might have used are bor och arbetar. Do they live in Sweden or do they work in Sweden? Bor de i Sverige eller och arbetar de i Sverige? And that is it for the exercise. So let's summarize this lesson real quick. Today we have learned, idag har vi lärt oss to ask questions, att ställa frågor. Two types of questions. The first one is the ones where we use question words. Varifrån kommer du? And also questions starting with the verb itself. Läser han böcker? Does he read books? Does he read books? Right? A couple of examples. Vad heter du? What is your name? Varifrån kommer han? Where does he come from? Vad pratar eller talar de för språk? What languages do they speak? Var ligger Umeå? Where is Umeå located? Var bor du? Where do you live? Right? The question verbs, var, varifrån, vad, var. And then the verb, heter, kommer, talar, pratar, ligger och bor. Now, contrary to the first type of questions, we have questions that start with the verb itself. They do not have any question verbs. Words. Arbetar du i Sverige? Do you work in Sweden? Läser han en bok? Is he reading a book? Lyssnar han på radio? Is he listening to the radio? Bor de i Frankrike? Do they live in France? And that's how we are done with these two types of questions. Now, maybe let's revise the vocabulary or ordlista. First of all, we have pronouns, pronomen, vi, first person plural, we, ni, you, meaning that we are referring to a group of people, second person plural, and dom or they, right? Either females or males, a group of males or females. Then we have verbs or verb. Ligger is located. Bor lives. Arbetar works. Läser is reading or is studying. I have never mentioned that the verb läser has two different meanings. So the first one is to be reading, han läser en bok, but we might also use the very same verb in order to say that we are studying. Till exempel, vi studerar eller läser svenska. Vi läser svenska. We are studying Swedish. What comes next is nouns or substantive. Tyskland, Germany, and the language is tyska. Italien, Italy. Italienska, Italian. Danska, Danish. Norska, Norwegian. Norge, Norway. Finska, Finnish. And Frankrike, France. Question words. Var, where, or the pronunciation might also be var. And prepositions i och in. Till exempel, jag arbetar i Sverige. I work in Sweden. Once again, the preposition i is used with countries, regions, and cities. And we have other or övrig, the word kul, how cool, nice, how great, how amazing, and pyttelite, a tiny bit, a little bit, a tiny bit. Right? And believe it or not, well done. We are definitely done with lesson number 2. I hope that you are feeling that you have learned something, because we have definitely touched upon a very important topic today in Swedish, right? And once more, if you have any comments, observations, or anything that you would like to share with us, we are eagerly waiting for your messages and anything else you would like us to know. And yeah, that would be it. And see you soon.